Okay, voice check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Guys, let me know if you can hear you. Ken and Steve, you each give me a voice check.
Checking the voice. Voice checking. Checking. 1, 2. Did I
Check
pass?
in. 1, 2, 1, 2.
All right. So, guys, if you can hear us, let us know. And we're hot. I mean, we're live. Hot's a
Careful
with that.
Don't even go there. Well, hello, Glue Troopers, and welcome to another scintillating Max's Models live stream. And let me just put this up here in real small.
So what are we talking about tonight?
Tonight we are talking about okay, I just did it. Well, you know what? I'll just do it this way. It doesn't matter. I have a face for radio. The smaller I make the picture, the better it is for everybody's health.
I would agree.
And let's see. So one of the things I thought, I got a couple of things, but one of the things I thought we would talk about is the stuff that we have learned. And by the way, Ken, you can see the Beaumont box over my shoulder there.
Oh yeah, cool.
Is the stuff that we learned. I mean, real world stuff we learned from building models, and I'll tell you why I picked that subject. Is John Kitt the scale model garage with us? Scale car garage with us? God, I gotta quit saying scale model.
Don't see him.
Okay. I forgot to send him an alert. Anyway, he recently did a video, and I really enjoy watching John's videos because he's so relaxing. It's and I hope he'll take this in the spirit that I mean it. This is a positive thing, but he's sort of like the Mr. Rogers of modeling. You know?
It's the maple syrup.
Yeah, it's just very, you listen to him talk about one of his models. It's just a really nice thing when you're stressed out about stuff. It's very relaxing. And he is the go-to guy on slot cars, and he and Mark from Montana both are big into slot cars, and if you got any questions about them, they probably have the answer, can find it real quick. But anyway, he got a package from one of his viewers in California, and it was a couple of Aoshima model cars, and one of them, he pulled it out, and it was the Toyota GT 2000 GT. And as a quick tangent, I want to know how come as soon as I turn the camera on, my nose starts itching. But anyway, so he's talking about it, and of course he knew all about the Fair Lady. The other one was a Fair Lady, the Datsun 240 back when it was Datsun. My brother had one of those. I drove it. I was actually up to 80 miles an hour. That car would boogie. Didn't top off real high, but anyway, So he mentioned in passing, and Steve, you were there when I learned this. In fact, you're the one that taught me this. He goes, they made like a convertible or two for a James Bond movie, and I'm pecking away. Oh no, I know that they had to cut the top off because Connery was too tall, and that was in the you only live twice, and they made two of them. One of them's at Desertland. I got to see it, and I was thinking I learned all this because of my involvement with models. And, you know, it started me thinking, how much stuff do I know about? People are always like, my God, how do you know, we'll have conversations about things with people who aren't in the model building. And I'm like, oh, well, you know, this. And how did you know this? I'm like, because I've been building models of these things for years. And one of the other things I realized is, and Ken had the bow mark right here in front of me. I've been fixing Ken's bow mark. It got damaged during the move. But anyway.
Great.
Well, no, I mean, parts got knocked off. I tried to be careful. So I've got the rest of it over on the bench. And as you, I will tell you guys right now that my bench has, it seems like the more models that I fix, the more models that I need to fix. And this photo was taken just not long before we started the live stream. And that is my bench. And this is after fixing a bunch of stuff. I mean, very few of these models, except for the rocket, which is behind me right now and it's finally finished. Very few of these models were on the bench earlier when I was talking about all the stuff I had to do. These are all more recent repairs because I got started cleaning up the garage because I got the glass shells ready to go. And that just brought a lot more models in here that needed working. But anyway, what I was going to get at before I so rudely interrupted myself. And by the way, guys, Ken painted these stripes. These are not decals. Beautiful work. Although I think
Thank you.
Somebody, did you do it or did you have someone do it for you?
I did the masking,
Uh-huh.
and Bob at the train museum did the painting.
Yeah, and of course, you can paint a model train, you can paint a model plane. Well, anyway, one thing I realized is that when you build models, because you hold things at different angles, is you can identify vehicles, aircraft, things like that from angles that a lot of people who even work with the real thing can't, because they're never going to see one from underneath or something. And since models are made to scale, it's amazing how well you can make that relationship. Well, when I built a model car, and I forget which one it was, but it had all the brake reservoirs and all that stuff. I think it was a GTO. But anyway, long story short, I built the model and I had gone ahead and detailed out the engine. And when I was looking, I was back when I wanted to get a 67 Chevy Impala. I wanted to make a supernatural, metallic car baby. But unfortunately, I was late for that because after that show came on, those cars went from $3,000 to $33,000. And somebody I knew had not the 4-door hardtop, but the 4-door sedan, but it was a roller. And he wanted $1,200 or $1,000, $1,500 for that because everybody, wanted them to do them for the show. And that should have been a $500 roller. But anyway, the roller, it's a body on frame, no engine, no transmission. But it did have a complete interior. But I looked up under the hood, there was no engine. But I could identify, that's the brake reservoir. All the parts I knew specific to a Chevy because I built a model of it. I knew what every pipe and hose was just from reading the instructions and detailing out the model. And I was thinking, wow, you're getting educated without even realizing it. And they're forcing knowledge on me. There was an episode of Married with Children where Bud says he spells a word and Kelly gets all upset and she just goes, "Dad, Bud's spelling at me."
Can I start out with that? What I learned from models?
Yeah, please do. I am Max the Destroyer of Models. That's going to be a t-shirt.
Not to sniff the glue.
Well, that was very early on, but that's not what I learned from models. You and I talked about this the other day with the visible V8 and the visible chassis.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I didn't have the engine. I just had the chassis model. But what I learned was fascinating to me was how a transmission worked and how the differential worked.
Mm-hmm.
I never knew. They were just, you move the lever, you push the gas pedal, and things happen.
I figured you had a wheel on each axle, and you went around a corner, they just spun. I didn't dawn on me that, hey, they got to turn at different speeds.
Yeah, I didn't either. So that was really the beginning of me really learning things from the things that I was building. I found that fascinating.
Yeah. And Steve, I imagine you learned a lot.
Yeah, I did. I learned how engines went together, how they worked, how you took them apart. A lot of things I learned on models when I got older translated into working on real cars.
Yeah, same here. Mm-hmm.
The one problem I had in shop class, though, was when I had to tear the engine down apart, is everybody's getting torque wrenches, and I'm walking up with a tube of glue. Come on, guys, do the math. Anyway, no, it really is. You build a lot of models when you read the instruction sheet and it has the history of the thing, and you're spotting errors. That's not right. They didn't do that. No, he never flew that airplane. Dear monogram models, Greg Boyington never flew the Hellcat.
No, the best is when you open the model, you look at the box, you look at the instructions, toss to the side, and say, yeah, I can build it.
I don't need that.
No, there's no stinking instructions.
Exactly.
Well,
I know how that's supposed to go together.
By the way, I've been doing a lot of chatting, emailing with Paul down in New Zealand, and he's been sending a lot of information my way on these 112 scale Airfix figure kits. And I was thinking, within the Knights and the Bengal Lancer and the French Napoleon era soldier, the Queen, and all these other kits, there's a lot of real history that kids are probably learning from doing these things. And I think about the kits that I built, and then of course they also have what we call 1/32 scale, but apparently often referred to as 54 millimeter figures. And that's a huge thing. Of course, painting those is so tough. And if I understand him right, they use the same thing that they pantograph to make the little ones to make the big ones. They just upscaled it. But anyway, I didn't build a lot of figures, but the few that I did, I was like, you learned a lot about it. And I remember asking questions when I was in military school. We'd have these military officers visit, and would ask them questions about specific pieces of equipment. They'd always look, wow, it's impressive. This guy knows, I remember asking the captain of the Kennedy, JFK, when he came to speak at our school, do you guys still operate in the RA-5C? And he goes, yeah, it's on its last cruise. He goes, very good question. And I was like, and he's kind of, I just learned that because I built a model of one.
Well, look at the Aurora models of the Knights.
Yeah, and I imagine a lot of people learned a lot of medieval history by building those because they come with you. Who was this guy, and why did you make a model of him, and why is it purple?
Trey's model said, when I started building models, the instructions were painted on a cave wall.
We painted them in bison blood, and
you might be a caveman if you had to read the instructions on the wall.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember kits that the instructions I remember my first kit was a bag kit Spitfire, and it was either the Airfix BTK Spitfire, a knockoff thereof, and you pop the two staples at the top and opened up the little piece of paper that was folded over, and there were the instructions on there. And it may not have been that one, but on others. I didn't know that the water slide decals that you soaked them in water, so we cut them out and glued them on. I mean, I was like 5 years old. But
yeah, I remember learning that too. I thought, oh wow, this is cool. You don't have to glue these on.
Yeah, unless it's one of those Novo kits, because when I built that fairy swordfish, which was Novo, got a bunch of the old, I think it was frog molds, and they were getting pretty rough, but you could clean them up. But the decals are absolute. I got about 20% of them on the airplane. The rest had to come out of the stash, or I printed if you get a Novo kit and you want to make the decals, just lay it on a printer and print copies, because everybody had warned me they were horrible, and that was not a exaggeration.
Well, the best is when you're halfway through the model and you're sliding the decal on, it wraps around your finger. And it breaks into pieces.
This never happens to Plasmo. But yeah, that's true. By the way, real quick side note, guys. Unfortunately, I'm getting emails that say, like they're bounced back from a couple of the glue troopers, and they're just spam. and Ken, you're a techie. I'm not sure how that works, but they get your, I guess they get access to part of your saved email addresses or something, so they can spoof people who actually send you legitimate emails.
Yeah, it's embedded in the message itself.
Yeah, and they so I've had to go to the spam folder. I was just in the spam folder looking that stuff up, and I found a couple of legitimate ones. So that's one of the reasons I've been missing some of you guys' submissions for the viewers builds, and I'm sorry about that. And some of them were really spoofs. You try to open the picture, it takes you to some Smith's Diet Center, and we're kind of like, yeah, remind me. So I get it. I need to lose weight, but so now I have to go through tree folder, I have to go through spam, and I have to go through trash, and I have to go through my regular one, try to ferret out what's garbage. And what's weird is they'll send emails to the spam folder that are responses that I had sent back to people. Like, someone sends me an email, I reply, they send a reply back to the reply, and it goes into spam. I'm like, no, wait a minute, clearly I answered this. You think the great algorithm could figure out that it's not spam, but oh well.
Somebody may have attached advertisements to it, and it goes, oh, okay, that's not good.
Okay, well, I see, I understand. This is one of the reasons I got out of IT, that and a severe lack of talent. A Lindbergh bomber escort piece. Huh?
Mostly the latter.
And Ken saw me programming. Oh, God, I want to go play in traffic.
I did some programming for him when he was in school, and it thoroughly impressed the instructors.
Yeah. Then he's like, that's great. Do it again.
Ken!
That was before the day of cell phones. But, anywho, I was thinking at first, we learned a lot from kit models just by reading the instruction sheets. We learned how they went together, what they looked like. We'd read a little history blurbs on there, but then I thought about, wait a second, I learned a lot just by reading the side panels on the boxes. And when you build a lot of models and you read a lot of boxes, you kind of accidentally become an amateur historian. Because there's a pretty inextricable link between a lot of model building and history. Regardless of what, except for fantasy and kaiju, but there's also a relationship between model building and certain types of literature, i.e. mostly science fiction.
Well, when you built models in the old days, you looked at the side of the box, they had 6 or 8 other kits on the side of the box.
Oh, yeah.
Which piqued your interest.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was all I did, marketing.
And then you either wanted to go out and get those kits, or you researched those particular real-life subjects and then said, oh, yeah, I really would like to get this kit.
Well, I can tell you something I learned today. This photo, I'm sorry, I said I took this photo just before I started. This one I took earlier this afternoon because the Ryan X13 landing pad is still there. I've already finished it. It's back on the shelf under glass. One thing I learned is that if you want to build a Ryan X13, despite what they tell you in the instruction sheets, don't use stretch sprue. I went and put a piece of fishing line on it because the stretch sprue was what broke. Right where, well, you guys know what I'm talking about. Let's see. Real quick, find the... Ken, you were asking about this. Let me just put it up here.
What's that?
The Dornier looking thing.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this is one of the treasures of my collection because this is actually made by the hands of Tom Daniel. Now,
somebody else commented on that model earlier too.
What's that?
Somebody else commented on that model earlier also.
Well, I thought I'd show it to you guys. I talked about it back when I built it, but TD, even though we think of him as a model designer and a stylist and everything, he's also a model builder, and a real good one too. So he thought the 335 would make a great base for a project. So let me find another picture. I will show you a different angle. He got it up here, but I want to touch it because every time I touch things, they break. But let's see, this picture might be a good one. He moved the wing up to the middle, or up to the top, and made it a shoulder mounted. Put it down. I mean, this thing looks like it ought to be taken off out of the Death Star. He had the wings on it. He had those guns, those cannons on the side in the blisters. He didn't have any props. He didn't have the cockpit done. He did have the intake on top of the fuselage done, and no, I did the exhaust. Anyway, he had the airframe complete, but he'd lengthened the nose and added and he made some mods to it. So when I got it, it was the fuselage, nose cone, engine cowling, and the wings were done. The tail was done, but it had no wheels. The gun pods were on it. It had no exhausts or anything. And so I just finished it out. I found a vacuum form canopy that would fit it and decided to make it a forward sliding canopy, and found some propellers for it. I completely fabricated the landing gear and the gear doors. And of course, because of how high the wing is and the crook shape, I had to fabricate that rather interesting looking landing gear. And I wanted it to look mechanically functional. So, but just before I painted it, TD had cut those wings and mounted them, and with the angle and everything, and they are perfectly symmetrical. I mean, his work was just flawless, and he's a perfectionist. And so I'm not really sure that I did the thing justice, but he thought it would look good in black, so I put it in a night attack scheme. And the idea is this is a what-if aircraft, if the war had gone on a little longer.
Looks like something from an Indiana Jones movie.
It really, really does.
Same thing.
It really does, and it's an awesome-looking machine. So when we get around to doing the kit bash, he also sent me the monogram 148 scale Dornier 337 or 335, the actual model. I think he had planned to do something, but never got with it. He sent it. He goes, "Here, do something with that." So I'm planning to do a 148 scale kit bash. It's going to be very different than this airplane, but I'll be using that. This is the little Lindbergh 172nd scale kit, but I'll be using the 148 scale when I'll be making another what if night fighter. In fact, I'm going to use the Stuka, that Lindbergh Stuka, and ME 262, the 2-in-1 kit that was sent to me by Glue Trooper. I'm going to use those to make two other aircraft because I'm going to modify them. And I'm going to put that little gas truck with and maybe even the little figures for like the generals and stuff that were sent to me. Put all together a diorama like they found all these experimental aircraft and they're all arguing about who gets to keep them. But that's my plan for the kit bash if I can get onto it. Unfortunately, I got so much going on. Speaking of which, I should check something real quick. We may have to move the dates around again because I just have so much going on. I'm not entirely sure I'll be able to. Well, I mean, we can still hold the, let's see, updated build schedule.
Clay Ravenwood said something funny. He says, "My brother built the Aurora U-boat, put it in his fish tank, and 2 days later, a lot of the fish were dead. Something in the glue must have killed them."
Yeah. Well, that was a comment I made about, making the Godzilla for a fish tank. But you got to make sure that whatever you paint it and glue it together with won't kill the fish. Which,
it's the radiation from Godzilla that does it.
That's going to be my excuse.
Why is there a cruise missile in the background?
Because that's what just happens to be on the shelf behind it. When I took I was just grabbing these. So you might as well ask why there's a toy airplane next to it. That's one of the things that Garfield sent me.
Well, the toy plane doesn't look like it's part of the diorama. The cruise missile kind of does.
Okay.
Because I guess it's right at the back edge of it.
What can I say, Ken? The Germans are really advanced.
Yes, they are.
Right now, I've got the UK build going up around December 5th, and I have had some submissions, and I could probably do it then, but I think I'm going to push that back, and everything else is to be determined. In fact, I think the UK build In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and make an executive decision. Let's just call that January 15th of 2023. So that's when we'll do the UK build, because I know a lot of people, just with the holidays and everything, they don't have time to get it done. I do already have some submissions, but and remember for the UK build, it's either a British subject of anything British or United Kingdom, or from a kit model company from the UK. So if you send me a picture of something that's not of the UK, tell me who made it and that it's for the UK build, so I don't just stick it in a regular viewer's build. And,
so could you send like one of Prince Andrew's underage girlfriends?
Yeah, we are
Which
so
one?
not going there. Oh,
Well, a kid of any.
okay, guys. Children.
Teacher's mad at us again, Ken.
Oh, we went and did it.
No, he just...
Salvage B24 didn't like January as that date.
Why's that?
I don't know. He just goes, January.
Well, you don't have to wait till then. That's just when I'll put the video together. You can send it as soon as you're ready. And remember, anything that gets in late or I miss because it goes to spam or whatever and don't find, I'll put in a viewer's build. It won't. But every time I put one of these things up, I get somebody contacts me while I put my picture in there, and I'm kind of like, okay, I either went to spammed it and find it. If you send it on Facebook, I have had nothing but trouble with Facebook. Real good chance I won't find it. Or something just got in the way, and that it's a little bit of a trick. We're so used to thinking email as send the picture and that's just it, and the magic happens. It doesn't always, and some of the folks that are in foreign countries have even more trouble. I guess it's bandwidth limitations or something. I really don't know, but it's too bad because there's some beautiful builds out there, and but it's limitation of the
Time for the
system.
cough medicine yet?
No. I got to go to work tomorrow, so no cough medicine tonight.
Claire Raven was asking, anyone having an adult beverage? If so, what is it?
Yeah, you guys, you're free. By the way, I saw a Volkswagen convertible in the parking lot today, and I couldn't resist going over to take a picture of it. I don't know what the vintage of it is, but because the Beetles, they didn't change a lot over time. I'm assuming it's done by that turn signals. I'm assuming it's one of the later ones. But,
It's
so...
at least a 68.
Really? That late? Okay.
Yeah.
What tips you off?
The amber side marker on the taillight in the back.
Oh, okay. I did not realize that was a thing that early on. For some reason, I thought that came about later. Okay. I mean, in cars in general, not the...
No, 68 was the first year they did side marker lights.
Okay. All right. Well, you guys probably, I'm sure everybody in here has ridden in one of these or owned one or whatever. And apparently there were just no safety requirements in the 60s. But I
way before the 60s.
Listen, my dad was like, you're not getting one of those. I don't even want you riding in one of those. They're dangerous little cars. Because as everybody knows, of course, the engine's in back. And of course, if you got hit by anybody, it was not a happy time. It was not a good day. But
but they floated. Couldn't drown in it.
Oh, you know the joke. You guys know the joke. If Teddy Kennedy had been driving a Volkswagen, he'd be president today.
That's right.
But instead, he went...
When I was a kid in Boy Scout camp in 1964, the guy who was the camp master got a VW. It was brand new. And he used to really dog us. So one night we snuck out. They were easy to break into. Had no ignition lock. Took the brake off, rolled it out onto the canoe slip, untied the slip, and pushed it out into the middle of the lake.
Gee, Steve, and you wonder why New Yorkers have such a reputation.
Yeah. 7 o'clock in the morning, it was like all hell broke loose.
You think?
It was like the siege at Da Nang. And we get rousted, and we're down at the parade field, and he's screaming, and I'm going to get whoever did this. And there's a guy in the tow trucks going out in a canoe to put a cable onto the dock to pull it back in. And we are doing everything we can not to laugh because we know we'd be dead if we laughed. But I didn't find it.
Please post build schedule. So somebody's asking, let me go grab that build schedule and pop it into the comments section real quick if I can. The live streams are a little bit different. I may have to put it in when we're done. That's not what I wanted.
My dad had one of those. It didn't have a gas gauge, but it did have an emergency reserve switch over on the near the
a little switch on
Yeah, when the motor stops, you need to go to a gas station.
Yeah, no, you just kicked a little lever over, and it went for, I don't know, another 200-300 miles.
Gallon. I had one in college. It was great. I mean, you put $2 worth of gas in it. It ran for a month. Of course, gas was like 17 cents a gallon back then, but you know.
Yeah, that was the cheap stuff. So what was your first car, Steve? I'm curious.
My first car was a 1965 Plymouth Sport Fury.
I'm going to try something here.
Car, and I went with him when he bought it new in '65, and I kind of knew this was going to be my car, and I put the press on to get this car. This car's the one. And he did. And I kept that car like in mint condition until I got old enough to drive, and he got another car, and so I got the car.
Cool.
And it was very good. I had a lot of fun with that car. I wish I still had it today.
Yeah, it'd be worth it. Hey, it looks like it worked. I was able to, it looks like I was able to get the build schedule added to the comment section through YouTube without going off air.
Greenberry 2 just commented, remember the Bug and Sleeper with Woody Allen?
Uh-huh.
He goes in the cave, it's 200 years in the future, there's a bug, he turns the key, it starts right up and drives out.
Well, the last time I saw a Volkswagen in a movie that got some interesting representation was in the Batman movie, where the first time he was a Catwoman, and and I think it was Keaton, and second or third one, and he's in the Batmobile getting ready to go do his nightly thing, and she's in her Volkswagen trying to put on her Catgirl costume. And I'm like, there was definitely a difference between the two of them. Supervillain on a budget.
My first car was a 67 Pontiac Catalina.
Go big or go home.
Big boy car.
It was a boat, man.
Complete with foghorn.
While it was running.
Well, the thing about
you didn't want to.
The thing about the VW that I found so interesting, I actually didn't. Well, I'm sure I rode in one as a kid, but I don't remember riding one as an adult until I was in college. My roommate had one. Somebody pointed out that they were making them in Mexico for a long time. Yeah, it was Batman Returns of Michelle Pfeiffer. That was it. But I know they made them in Mexico for a long time. I remember them being a big thing in the paper when they stopped making them. I guess they went back to it. He said 2019. I thought they quit making them around 99. But whenever, the point being is they're still floating around. But and you still see them on the road from time to time. I don't know if they're done the Mexican versions or the German ones. But the Germans call them Kifas. And they love those little things. And in Europe, the car made sense. What we used to do with them all the time, being in aviation, was all the home-built airplane guys would buy a Volkswagen, a used one, just to get the engine, because it was an air-cooled engine. Yep. And they would strap on the front. And one of the very first kit home-builts is called the Volksplane. And it was made for the Volkswagen engine. It was also the first plane crash I ever saw. No, I didn't see the plane crash. I saw the wreckage afterwards. Actually, been the second one. But we went in the hangar, and there was a cockpit. And this thing was made out of, it was a little single-seater made out of wood. If you go look up Volksplane, it's about as basic as a home-built airplane can get. The wings were gone, the tail was gone, the engine was laying over in the corner, the wheels were off. There was just a cockpit section laying there. The only part that didn't get torn up. And that guy, I could not believe it. He actually limped away from that. And I was like, that is no small miracle. And it was the engine quit on him, and I was kind of like, you paid $300 for a used car just to steal the engine out of it, and then you want to gripe when it quits?
Maybe you should have changed the oil.
I mean, come on.
I had a Volkswagen when I was in college, and I was driving somebody home on the on the turnpike, and all of a sudden the two lights on the dashboard lit up, and the car just stopped. Well, the crank snapped.
Jesus.
So I got it towed to a junkyard that had Volkswagens. I went in there and I said to the guy, I'm looking for a motor for this. He goes, well, here you go. There's like 40 of them in here. I went over to the car, found one. 6 bolts. I took the one out that was in my car. 6 bolts. I took the one out in one of the other cars. 6 bolts. I put it in, and I drove away for $100 later.
Well, that tells you a lot about a car when it snaps a crankshaft, and it's easier just to buy a whole car, engine than.
Yeah. Oh, it was easy. I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, it was cheap. It was easy to fix, and it was pretty indestructible.
Well, the reason I thought I'd bring the Volkswagen up is that other than the Herbie the Love Bug kit and I think one little German one, for as prolific as a car as it was, there weren't that many kits of it around. There were a few. And
Tamiya did them. Tamiya did it.
Mm-hmm.
Revell did a couple of them.
But a lot of them did the Dune buggy versions.
What's that?
A lot of them did the Dune buggy versions or the rally race versions.
No. Revell did one of the famous kits of the 50s. Is the microbus with the 19 windows.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the Beetle.
No, Tamiya did it. Revell did it. Hasegawa did it. And then they did a bunch of the little different variants of the vans and the trucks.
Okay. I found one here. The Revell VW $24.99. Oh, I guess they still make the kit. Skill level 4.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a tough little sucker.
Probably a Revell Germany one.
Well, of course, Revell of Germany would make it. Wie them driving down the Strasse.
You get a free coupon for a schnitzel in it.
A famous comedian did a little skit on the VW bug. He said it's the only car banned from the Golden Gate Bridge because it would change lanes without moving the wheel. If the fan belt breaks, you just use a rubber band.
Yeah. Well, I stand corrected then because I didn't find that many companies that made kits of just the regular old VW, but apparently I didn't look hard enough. Should have spent that extra 30 seconds on Scalemates. Hey, I put these shows together in a hurry. The Beetle to me.
The Tamiya one is really a good little kit.
Well, it's Tamiya, or Tamiya.
Can you really put a Corsair engine in a bug?
Hell yeah. You got to cut out the back of the car because it's longer. You take the hood latch off or the tail cover off. It'll stick out a little bit. Yeah, it'll bolt right up.
Now that you mention that, Steve, I remember seeing VWs on campus because VWs and little Honda 65s were all over Florida State. For those of you who remember the little Honda 65 motorcycle, and it barely qualified as a motorcycle. But
did they get one? Did you get one when you got a scholarship there? Or?
my family had one because my foster brothers and my brother, they were going to FSU, and those things were real handy. And they came in 2 colors, red and black. And I was like, if I get one, I'm going to get a black one because red's for girls. But it was lipstick red. But anyway, I wonder if anybody makes I think somebody does make a kit of the Honda 65. But anyway, I remember seeing VWs that they had removed, like you said, they had unhinged and removed the rear the bonnet cover over the engine. I guess it would be the hood in the back, the trunk hood. But they would slap like they'd slap modification. You see the fan belts going and stuff because the guys would, I guess they would beef up the engines, put oversized carbs on them. I'm not sure what they were doing, or maybe dropping different engines in there.
They put dual carbs in them, or if they were really dumb and had a lot of extra money, they'd find a wrecked Porsche and throw a Porsche motor back in there.
God. Well,
because after all, what is a Porsche? It's a VW on steroids.
They're both Porsche design the Beetle. That's why they look so much alike. And the first time I saw the Porsche sports car or saw a picture of one, the first thing that popped in my head was, who's gonna buy that silly looking car? It looks like a Volkswagen. And
I'll tell you a hysterical story. There was a guy who was the Porsche dealer out where I lived in out in Long Island. He was a Porsche dealer out there in the 50s. And Porsche had a car in the 50s that the U.S. importer made them make, which was called the Speedster. And it had a bigger engine, and it had stiffer suspension, and the windshield was cut down. It had a very low roof line, and it was a convertible. It was very well sought after. So this guy's selling one at his dealership, and this guy comes in, and he's interested in the car. He goes, well, I'd like a test drive, but I don't know how to drive a stick shift. So the guy who was an SCCA racer, he says, well, come on, I'll take you for a ride. So he's flying around in this car and blows right past the cop sitting in a speed trap.
Good move, Slick.
So the cop takes off after him. He loses the cop. Goes back to the dealership, puts the car in front of the front window. They go in, they're doing the paperwork, and the cop shows up at the dealership. Okay? The cop gets out of the car. He walks around the car and looks at it 2 or 3 times, puts his hand on the front hood.
Ah! He should have known better.
The car and drives away. Because he didn't realize the motor's in the back.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm sitting here on Scalemates, and you're right. There's a whole bunch of companies that made models of the Volkswagen. And some of them are pretty big scale, too. There's some 116s and 120s and stuff. I didn't realize Monogram made a 116 scale. So I definitely stand corrected. It is not an undermodeled model. It just somehow never crossed my path. I don't think I've ever seen it on the shelf except for the Herbie the Love Bug one when I was a kid. I don't think I had it, though. I don't think I bought it.
I remember now. I had when I was in my sophomore year of high school. We moved 2 school districts away, but we wanted to keep going to high school because our friends were there. Plus, I was taking an electronics class, which wasn't offered anywhere else. Anyway, so he bought us a VW station wagon to drive to school with. And
are you talking about a Beetle?
What's that?
You talking about a Beetle wagon or a? I remember VW made some other
a little
vehicles.
square wagon.
Yeah, and the engine is in the back.
It was a 412.
Okay, I don't remember what it was. I just remember it was a VW station wagon. Anyway, so I'm sitting in the passenger side, and
oh yeah, I remember those things. I remember those things now.
Yeah, so my brother was driving, and we had some friends in the back, and they had some stuff in the back of it. And they said, well, we need to get stuff out of the back. And I said, oh, okay, I'll open the back hood. So I opened up the glove box door, and I pushed this yellow button, thinking it was going to open the back hatch. Well, nothing happened.
What, did it eject the engine?
Well, let's tell the story. Stop interrupting. So my brother goes, what are you doing? So I released, and he said, no. So I went, opened up the rear door, got stuff out, got back car. We're driving down the road, and the hood pops up. Here's the front hood release. I didn't know that. And he can't see a thing, and he just lets go of the wheel and says, I can't see a thing.
And that, Your Honor, is how this whole thing started.
So I'm looking down in the crack between the hood and the dash, and I can see where we're going. So I grab the wheel, and I slowly pull us over to the side of the road. And right about then, somebody drives by and says, you kids cut that out. You're going to kill somebody.
Yes, hopefully just yourselves. But yeah, I threw a picture up here of one. I'd forgotten about the little VW wagons. That was... Wait, the engine was in back in those things?
Yeah.
Underneath the floor in the back.
Oh, I think I do remember that. God, we're going back a ways now. Sorry, I didn't oil the Wayback Machine today.
We had to go look for it. We lifted the hood. Where's the engine?
I just real quick got a picture and throw it up there just to give everybody a training aid. Well, here's I've not only apparently do a lot of model makers make models of the Volkswagen, but they made models of a lot of the weird versions of Volkswagen. Who remembers when people did this with their cars? They put the little Rolls Royce trunks on them and all that stuff. Which I always thought, man, I'm sorry, but that is literally putting lipstick on a pig. You also have those sports car bodies you could drop on a Volkswagen, and the best
thing that ever happened to Volkswagens was the Myers-Manx Dune buggy.
Oh yeah, they were actually good at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody was just commenting about that a few minutes ago.
And you took the body off. You did whatever you wanted with the motor. You cut the pan, made it a little shorter, dropped the body on, bolted it together. You had a dune buggy. You were flying.
Yeah, and I used to see that, especially down here in Florida. Kids love to take them out to the beach and everything. And you learned real quick that a VW had no immunity to rust.
Nope.
Oh,
Steve McQueen and the Thomas Crown affair.
I also remember the Volkswagen. Somebody was trying to sell one and pull back the little rubber mat on the floor, and there was the road.
Yeah, wow.
I've seen that.
Well, Volkswagen's other claim to fame, which I really wanted, was the thing, which was basically a modern version of the Kubelwagen. And I mean, I was like, you could almost use this in a World War II movie and get away with it.
And they sold a bunch of those things.
And apparently they were, well, I mean, they were Volkswagens. They were what they were supposed to be. But apparently they've gotten expensive because a lot of them did not last the test of time, as I understand it. And I believe there are several kit models of this around.
I've actually seen the real thing. Somebody driving around with one of those things on the front of the car.
I saw one a while back. I don't remember where I was, but I was like, holy crap, there's one of those still on the road. And let me see.
You couldn't make it any uglier if you tried.
And I was like, why don't you guys just go ahead and give it the sloped front end of the Kubelwagen so all the military buffs can have fun with it? You probably sell more of them and it'd look more streamlined.
I was just going to say, that's how you make a bug uglier.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's hard to do.
The thing, yes. I think they purposely went for ugly as a marketing gimmick.
Well, I don't know. They sold 20 of them.
Either that or they found an old German warehouse with all these bodies left over from World War II.
That too.
Said, oh, let's just make them. We got the bodies.
Get them out of here. Put them on cars.
Okay, they make models of the Beetle, the Polo, not familiar with that one, the T1, the Golf, the T3, the new Beetle, all the they even make the Scirocco.
The only thing uglier was the Pontiac Aztec.
No argument there.
My sister's trying to chime in. I hope that's not. I don't see the VW thing as a model. I thought that someone made a kit of it. Did anybody know its technical designation?
What?
Like a T1 or something? I'm not finding, at least on ScaleMates, I'm not finding the Volkswagen thing.
You want to take that phone call?
If I do, I'd have to hang up on you guys, I think.
Oh.
No, you could just join her in too.
Oh yeah, that's what I want to do. Is let's.
Yeah. Let's traumatize the poor woman.
Why should
Listen, just to let you know, there's
call her
back. Well, I can't hang out. I tell you what, you guys. I tell you what I'm going to do. Hold on. I have a cunning plan.
Uh-oh. That means we're getting cut off, Ken.
Hold on just a second. I'm going to put some of this imagery up here. Let you guys talk about Volkswagens while I go use my wife's phone. Because, remember, we proudly have the lowest production values on the interweb. I'll be right back, guys. All right, you got the show.
You think your sister would know you were busy?
You have the con number one.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Instead of that yellow Volkswagen, I'd take the red Fury in the background.
Mine was
That's
beige.
just me. That's just me.
Mine was beige color. I remember that. We didn't keep it very long because there was something wrong with it, and we took it back.
Volkswagen. What else?
Yeah, I mean, we couldn't tune it up. We found the engine and lifted the covers up and said, "How the heck do you fix this thing?" So we ended up taking it back, and that's when we got the Opel Kadett that I told you about that I totaled.
Well, Did you give it a Swedish funeral with the fire arrows off into the ocean?
Oh, no, we didn't do that. It just got... Actually, I had just left. My brother is working in a garage gas station just down the street, and he heard the sirens and the trucks going by and stuff like that. And then here comes the tow truck bringing the car back down. He was so mad at me.
Not good. Not good. Oh, I see John had a Carmen Ghia. That was a spiffy little VW. As much rust as car, but I loved it.
Weren't those the ones that look like frogs? With the eyes sticking up? Or was that something else?
No. They weren't a bad-looking car.
Great fun to drive. Okay.
Herman says that people are posting too much. You can't keep up. So you guys slow down for Herman.
Yeah, not so much posting there. Put a turbo Cummings in the beetle.
Yeah. The motor would weigh more than the car.
It'd be like one of those rat rod models.
Yeah. Spewing smoke all over the place and saying, "Oh, but diesels are cleaner for the environment."
It's like an engine with wheels. Instead of the other way around.
Well, it's interesting. When you look at Volkswagen, I mean, they started out with the Beetle, but then they branched out into a lot of different cars over the years. You had the Golf, you had the Polo, you had the 412, which is that wagon there. They really kept trying. What's so funny?
Coulda Kill is irritating Herman. Post just to irritate Herman.
Okay.
Garfield says, just read faster.
Perhaps, Herman, before the next class, you might want to take a remedial reading course. Just to keep up with the speed of the banter.
You can scroll those comments back. You don't have to read them that fast. I will get back at you all.
Yes, well, that is Well, somebody has to filibuster. It should be someone.
We have a...
Claire, that's a 59 Fury back there, Claire.
What is Saggy Bud saying? What's that word?
Here in Oregon, in my town, we have a...
I can't even pronounce that. Maybe he misspelled it.
Uncle of Carmen,
Carmagia.
Obviously, spell checker strikes again.
All right, guys, I'm back.
Oh, Dodge Polara. Yes, that's what took out my Opal.
Yeah.
Didn't even scratch the chrome.
You're supposed to dodge it, Ken. That's why it's called a Dodge.
Yeah.
So, hope you guys... the good news is that it was... she was just checking in. It wasn't anything urgent or anything. I was concerned because...
She was disrupting theater in progress?
Yes.
Okay.
We have some extended family stuff going on, and I was hoping it was... Fortunately, so anytime a family member calls, I race to the phone. But good news.
Cool. That was a hysterical commercial.
But
hey, look at that! Matchbox has things, VW things.
Matchbox,
yeah,
the kit or Matchbox toys, Lesney.
No, they're Matchbox cars.
Oh, okay.
Matchbox cars.
I couldn't find a kit model of the thing, which I thought for sure I had seen one, but I'm not finding it. But again, I'm just jumping on scale mates, but which is an incredible resource. I know everybody here is familiar with it, so there's no need to... Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Volkswagen 181? I mean, it looks like... That's like a military version, post-war military version of the thing. In 1 to 43 and 1 to 72. That's interesting. Okay, well, there's a homework project for somebody. Find me a kit model of the Volkswagen thing. And then you put it in German markings and put a camera crew in front of it. Remember, you can get away with anything, including stuff being off scale, if you put a model of a camera crew in front of it. It's just special effects. Here's what I was looking for. The other thing, copy image. This takes me just a second. Okay, paste, crop, file, save as, VVVW. You guys going to take all this. Ken, you remember you said you had a Volkswagen wagon, which I was having trouble remembering it, and I was like, this is what I was picturing. Okay, hold on. Got to click a few more buttons. Image. Okay. Browse. There it is. There actually is a Volkswagen wagon, and you'll have it pop in on your screen shortly. This is, I'm sure, a European thing, like a delivery van or something, but I guess they put the engine under the floorboard like they did with the other one. There it goes. You should be seeing it now.
Yeah, we were surprised to find it back there.
Watching the name Catch-22, movie made a bit 24 was the first plastic model I put with. Catch-22.
It did not look like that.
No, somebody made that.
Mine was a 4-door.
Well, it looks like a resin, but VW Cosinelli. Is that Italian? Anyway, that's and now for something completely different. That was when you said VW wagon, an image like that popped in my head, and I was like, I don't remember seeing that. And I was like, oh, that's right. They made that weird looking little station wagon. Man, they were everywhere in the 60s and 70s.
Please kill that thing before it multiplies.
Remove the eyesore. My eyes are burning.
Looks like something somebody made in their garage.
They very well may have. There are a lot of, there are a lot of garage kits out there.
After a few beers.
Yeah. Many years.
If they thought that looked good, they had way too many beers.
Good Lord, Max, grab the right thing here. Now, for something completely different.
Okay, let's do that.
This is, you'll see popping up momentarily, an F8 Crusader in a museum with stripes on the tail and an arrowhead down the side, very much like the Crusader F8U box top from Aurora. And it got me wondering about the inspiration that a lot of the artists had for the models for the box art that they did. Now, some of them, like a lot of the Linwood paintings, it was really World War II stuff. You just go find a photograph of one of the airplanes that's to your liking and put it in there. But I got curious and I started looking, and I could not find a Navy squadron that used the markings that are on the Aurora box. That museum plane was the closest I could find. And then I realized that, especially with military hardware, probably aircraft are particularly bad about this. Paint schemes and squadron logos and stuff like that change a lot. You buy a model, you get a set of decals with it, but if you want to make anything other than what they put in the box, if you want to make it squadron specific or something like that, or if you get a car, you want to make it a certain fire department or police department or whatever, or the one you had that, is never the decal sheet that comes with the kit, you have to, generate your own decals. And if you're trying to make something historically accurate, it can get really difficult because this crap changes all the time. Now, since I model mostly just for fun and don't get too serious about, hyper-accurizing it, it doesn't really bother me, but I know it drives some guys absolutely bonkers. And that got me wondering, because I know you did that Eagle Moss DV604 and Ken did the Beaumark, and it got me wondering, what is the most trouble you've had trying to make an accurate model of something or research something? I want to build so-and-so's airplane and I can't find a decent picture of it, because I am sure all of us have faced that at some point.
Ken, is that a Volkswagen, that plane? Because it shows the engine in the back.
Are you guys texting each other pictures?
No. No, I don't see any pictures.
that sounds very disingenuous, Ken. That was hand in the cookie jar, Ken voice. You hesitated and you went, no. So, they're having their own little show behind all of our backs. Well, we know how they roll, don't they? And they didn't even loop me in, so, you know. Well,
and we're selling tickets.
Just the star of the show, you know.
Yeah, but okay, so you're building this model, and you want it to look either similar to the box or similar to one you've seen. You know, now it's easier to research it than it was before because you have the internet, thank you, Al Gore. But, you know, in the old days, I mean, you were limited to newspaper and magazine articles.
And maybe an encyclopedia.
Or if you wrote a letter to, you know, whatever branch of the military had that plane and they were kind enough to respond and send you a picture.
Yeah. And I have had that done. And sure enough, all the folks are down here talking about ones that they were trying to do the find information on and pictures of. And it doesn't surprise me. I remember I wanted to well, God, there's been so many of them I wanted to do, and I couldn't find a decent photograph. And then, of course, the internet, we gotten so spoiled, but a lot of times you go out and like, man, I can't even find one on the internet. And if, you know, we're getting to that stage in our life where if it's not on the internet, I don't think it really exists.
It's true. It's not like once we figure out that parallel universe thing, we'll be able to find it.
Well,
yeah, it's like when you don't wear your Fitbit, the steps don't count.
Yeah. Well, Kuda Killa brought up an interesting one, and that is he was trying to do, which dovetails exactly into what I was just saying. He was trying to figure out if Robin Old's Scat, his P-38 in World War II, was olive drab or silver. But I've heard a lot of pilots talk about it. Again, it depends on when, because in the wintertime they'd strip them down to the bare metal, and then during the summertime they put the olive drab back on them. Like I said, they were always changing paint schemes. And a lot of times you will see, and you guys probably, Steve, I know you've seen it, because at the model shows, somebody will have this magnificent Messerschmitt or whatever out there, and it'll go, you know, Oberleutnant Hermann Schmidt, January 14th, 1944, because they're day specific, because a month before, a month after, the airplane's been repainted and scrubbed down and looks completely different. So they rotated through so many paint schemes. And some folks you'll see out there, and they'll do like one airplane in a dozen paint schemes, and it's the same airplane. You know, this is this Messerschmitt in January of 43, and here it is in December of 44. And it went through all these, because here it was in Italy, and here it was in the desert, and here it was, you know, it's got the trope filter on it, here it was there, and here it was there, and so on and so forth. And makes you realize how much the Luftwaffe got around.
Plastic Slave just sent a message. He says, wife just brought me down dinner so I could watch the live stream. She said Saturday is Max Day. Gotta love it.
Put that one on your calendar. You guys can think about that as you're exchanging private emails and pictures back and forth and not looping me in. That is not going away anytime soon. So
I gotta make a comment here about this Corsair you got a picture of here in the museum.
Mm-hmm.
That jack
that's a
screw
Crusader.
that holds up the leading edge of that wing looks really tiny.
That's a Crusader, Ken. The Corsair was a stubby one that dropped bombs.
Yeah. Big,
Okay, so what were you saying? What were you saying looks really tiny on it?
The jack screw that holds up the leading edge of the wing.
Yeah. Well, they did occasionally come off. I think I may have told you guys a story.
Catastrophic results, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, usually on landings.
Well, since the whole wing came off. Yeah. No, actually, I read this in a book about Jacksonville Naval Air Station and the F-8s. And one of the other things is the paint jobs also. A lot of people don't realize that an air group is not organic to a carrier. In other words, when somebody says, I was with, VF such and such on the Oriskany, he's talking about time and place. An air group is assigned to a carrier for a cruise, but they could be on another carrier on their next cruise. But they, like I say, they're always repainting these things. They paint the name of the carrier they're operating off of while they're operating off of that carrier. And they get stripped off when they're done. And, of course, it also depends on when in the Navy you're talking about, because, you know, they had doctrinal changes on paint schemes. But anyway, yeah, the F8 was here in Jacksonville. The one I built, the Aurora one, that very kit that's in the box, which is on the shelf now. It's not a great kit, but it does have a retractable landing gear, and it has the engine in it. And the body will pop in half so you can pull the motor out and show it. And everything is off scale, and it's not a great representation. But it had play value because the stuff worked. The wing does not pop up and down. And the chin scoop's way too big. I should have gone and gotten a picture of it. But anywho, what I'm getting at is that there was something they could do. And I think it was if they popped the wing up at a certain speed, it made a real loud rattle. It was like a real throaty sound. And they would like swoop over places and do that. And it would, you know, wake everybody up. It was just kind of a cool macho thing to do, to come by making all this racket. And apparently one of the guys, but there was a speed limit, as I understand it, there was a speed and G limitation on it. And somebody was hot-shotting over Jacksonville Naval Air Station, if I remember the story correctly, and they pulled that, and it just pulled the wing completely off. And he was zooming over at low altitude, so of course the cockpit, the fuselage, just torpedoed into the ground before he could even reach the ejection handle. With, you know, fortunately for the Navy, it went down on the base, not off on civilian property. But of course, this is back in the 60s when you could do that hot dog stuff, and everybody thought Buzz running the tower was cool. It was how you became a man. You know, the things that used to be macho in aviation, you know, will get your license pulled and get you thrown in jail these days. That's why a lot of people who've watched the new Maverick movie joke about it's a great movie, but if you did half that crap in the real world, they'd crucify you. And
well, Shaggy hit it on the head. Model kit makers love selling the same kit with different decals.
Oh God,
you
yeah,
got it, my friend.
That's good Lord, yes.
That's the way to make money, because the cost of those molds are so expensive.
Yeah.
So let's spread it across 10 kits.
And for just the cost of a couple of filters and a few extra pieces, oh, this is the trope version, this is the European version, this is the one that's, yeah, it's just a few extra parts. And, you know, because a lot of the equipment, a lot of airplanes, like the, you know, especially, I don't think there's any better example than the Spitfire and the 109 for two airplanes that served just about everywhere outside of, well, even the Spitfire actually even served in the Pacific. And by the way, it did not fare very well against the Zeros. But the Messerschmitt, you know, there's a dozen versions of that. There's a dozen versions of the Stuka, although you got to cut a lot more mold parts of the Stuka because it went through some pretty big changes. But the Messerschmitts and the Spitfires, you can reuse a lot of the parts.
Well, look at the perfect example of that nowadays is look at J.R. Salvino's.
Yeah.
It's one car with 25 different decals, make 25 different kits. But it's the same car.
But it's the same kit. It's the same kit. But that car out on the racetrack is used by 25 different drivers. So there you go. And
that's the beauty of NASCAR kits. They're all the same car.
And of course, they do the same thing with aircraft, you know, and certain ships like destroyers that they made a lot of. Oh, buy the USS this and the USS that, and like they're freaking identical. Well, I remember Mike Machette was talking about being disappointed. I think it was, I forget, it was the Caravelle or the Comet model he'd waited on, and it turned out basically the same kit he'd bought before with different decals.
Yeah. Why didn't they just include all the decals in one kit?
Because then you can't sell two of them. Some companies did that. You guys might remember
that was spoken like a true captain of industry.
Yeah. But the you guys remember the MPC profile kits, which by the way were actually Airfix kits. I built the Airfix C47 and the MPC DC3, and even when I built them before I'd done the history video and realized that they were just contracting Airfix, because MPC basically just, you know, didn't do airplanes that much. But I was like, these two kits are absolutely identical. But the Airfix kit came with the World War II D-Day markings. The MPC, where they had the profile series of 3 airplanes on the side of the box, they had 3 sets of decals. But they were the worst freaking decals I ever had. In fact, a lot of them were just one big sheet. They made them as cheap as they could, and they wouldn't lay down. Yeah, they were horrible. They were the worst decals I'd ever used until I got the Novo decals. And, but, you know, I remember we soaked it one time and they came off. It was a solid sheet. None of the decals, you had to trim them out. So I trimmed them out and I laid them on the model, and they wouldn't lay down. They were very thick and stiff, and they didn't cling very well. Because all of us, especially as kids, your model, where's your decal? And you're like, there it is on your finger. And that model might be a month old. But,
I don't think I ever did that.
well, one of the other things somebody needs to make a video
put them
on.
in the water and they roll up into a cone inside the water.
Oh yeah, and then they're too thin. Yeah, we've all had that. I remember I think it was the second or third version. Kudakilla was talking about when Star Trek, the first model Enterprise I ever got was the one that had all 12 starship options. It came with all the numbers separately, and you had to letter it out, but you could make the Potemkin or the Congo or the Republic or the Enterprise or the Constitution. And but that was like the second or third iteration. Somebody out there just recently did a really good video on all the different versions of the model Enterprise. I didn't realize it wasn't until about the fourth iteration they got rid of that crappy little U that stuck the engines in that always sagged. It wasn't until about the fourth iteration thing they finally put some decent engineering in there and got them to mount properly. But
well, that's because it's a 0G model.
Well, yeah, even Matt Jeffries said that it didn't. It was the whole ship was designed for 0G. You guys are having trouble making a kit model because we actually live in Earth's gravity, and unless you were going to put vacuum form nacelles on or something, they were always sagging. Finally engineered them and weighted down the front of them enough that they would hang. They came with those ridiculous little wheat bulbs and everything to make them glue. And
I was just watching the Adam Savage YouTube video about him with the original model of the Enterprise at the Smithsonian when they were restoring it.
Yep, I'm sure we've all seen that.
And it was fascinating. The front ends of the nacelles were built up, and the rest of it was just a hollow tube.
Yeah. One reason to keep the weight down, keep it in balance.
Because that's where the lights were.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, one of the, and I imagine most folks know this, although I've done it on a couple of videos, someone else did a really good video, I actually just watched recently, on the 11-foot shooting model and the 3-footers. And he also just recently did the Klingon ships. And there's always been, for all you sci-fi modelers, there's always been an ongoing debate about the color of the Klingon ship. And yes, it was gray and it was green, the shooting model. But later on, it was solid gray. Now, people forget they made two of them. One went straight to the studio for filming. The other went to AMT for pattern work to cut the kit. And if I remember correctly, the kit made the shelf about a month before the ship appeared on screen. It's funny, for such an iconic ship, you realize that the Klingon vessels only appeared on screen in 3 episodes of Star Trek, and they were aired out of order. So I think Elena Troyes was the first one that you actually see the ship, but it was the last one that they'd shot, and with the Klingon ship. But anyway, one of them wound up in Roddenberry's hands, and the other one of them's in the filming model. Some people have what they call the Matt Jeffries model, and the other one is the Roddenberry model, because even though Matt Jeffries designed them both, by the way, he did that on his own time, because there wasn't money in the budget for him. Because anyway, Roddenberry ended up with one, and I think Jeffries ended up with one, and Jeffries wound up donating it. So the shooting one, the one that actually appears on screen, is the one, but it's been repainted, is the one that went to the Peterson. Who's the tech billionaire that made the Museum of Pop Culture?
Paul Allen.
Paul Allen,
yeah. Museum.
Went to the Paul Allen Museum, and I think
in Seattle.
Yeah, and the other one is at the Smithsonian. That was the one that AMT used to make the kits. Well, you guys probably might be familiar with this story, but do you know what happened when they lent the 3-foot shooting Klingon shooting model to the movie makers for the new movie when they were going to like 79. Did you hear that story?
No.
Oh. Okay. They're going to remake Star Trek Phase 2 as a TV show. Can't quite get it to launch. So they decided, let's just go ahead and make a movie. All right? Which, by the way, if you ever saw Buck Rogers in the 25th Century with Gil Gerard, that was actually filmed as a pilot that didn't air. So the guys who made it said, well, what the heck? We got it in the can. Let's just release it in the theaters. So they released it in the theaters. I remember seeing it in the theater and thinking, I like this movie, but it's kind of bubblegummy. It's made for like a 12-year-old audience. I mean, didn't stop me from enjoying it, even though it was 17. But it turned out it was a TV pilot they just decided to toss at the theaters. And it did well enough at the theaters, they went ahead and produced the show for 2 seasons. Anyway, back to Star Trek. So they're going to make the movie in 78, 79. So they contact the Smithsonian and say, could we borrow the 11-foot Enterprise so that we can, use it to get the measurements and make them da-da-da-da? And they were like, no, absolutely not. This is an artifact. It's 11 feet tall. The shipping, too much chance of damage. Okay. Which is one of the reasons they built a whole new Enterprise. But they said, well, could we borrow the Klingon ship? And they're like, well, it's not on display. It's only 3 feet. Sure. So they sent it to them. And they used it to make molds and made about a dozen knockoffs, which they then upgraded for the opening scene of the movie. Guess what they did to the model so that they could get all the measurements and make all the molds? They pulled it apart.
Mm-hmm.
And sent it back to the Smithsonian that way. And the Smithsonian's like, this is why we wouldn't let you have the 11-footer. And
at least it got restored.
It did, but then it also got repainted, which is why it's all gray now. And but there's a video out there. You can probably just Google it. The guy does he dedicates a lot of his videos to Star Trek history and models, and he goes into great detail. A lot outside of Stephen Poe's book, but that book was actually written when the show was still in production. Actually, although he wrote it under the name of Stephen Whitfield, but
there's another story from that video also that I'd like to share. Adam Sandler was not Adam Sandler. What is that guy from? Whatever. Anyway, so he was talking to the curator, and he shared a story where the model people went to Roddenberry and said, okay, what do you want? Okay, and he said, all right, I want this, looking like this, whatever. And they said, okay, do you want lights in it? He said, no lights. Okay, fine. So they went and made the model. They came back, and first thing Roddenberry said was, can we put lights in it?
Yeah, welcome to dealing with a Hollywood director-producer. I know a few of the people watching have had, and you could definitely talk to Mark Tyler about this from Immense Miniatures, because he's worked a lot in Hollywood. That is kind of stereotypical conduct for those, when you're dealing with artistic-oriented people, they tend to, no, you know what, it'd be nice if, I asked you before, yeah, but I didn't envision it. Now I can see it. And now I'm like, ugh. And then Your Honor was when I choked him.
I've had customers like that.
Oh, yeah.
We all have that. Customers like that.
Oh, God. What was that famous quote by a...
Close to the microphone, Max.
What was that famous quote by a toy executive? Your dreams are our nightmares.
Yeah.
And how many toy companies have gone out of business, just because they called it wrong? Because you have to a year or two lead time. And what was it, Get Along Gang?
A lot of them.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about powerhouse toy companies that are making bank, and then they call it wrong 1 year and they're gone. What do you think they are? Yep. Airlines?
You're betting the farm.
Yeah, every year. It's no wonder toy makers drink. Well, look at Aurora, for example. I mean, I know we always go back to Aurora because it's such a classic example. Change of the guard, and the new guy's got great ideas, and he's wrong. Well, Aurora was gone within a few years, and it was a powerhouse company. People forget, we think of Aurora, we think of models, but they were into all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, but see, the problem there was if they would have left the models and the road racing alone,
Mm-hmm.
that would have paid for everything. And then they could have dicked around with the games, which is what he tried to get them into. And even if they lost money, they would still be okay because they had the models and the road racing.
Mm-hmm.
But he shut off the models and he shut off the road racing and put everything into games. So you didn't have a base of income to support it. That was just bad management.
Yeah. By the way, guys, John is here, Fast Sports, who we were talking about you earlier. So
John is in the house.
He's in the house, so we'll loop back to that. In fact, I'll go get a picture to go with it. So, John, what I was telling them was, before Ken and Steve started sending each other's pictures behind my back, oh yeah, that's not going away anytime soon.
I'll never tell you what they are.
I don't want to see them. I don't care. I don't care. So, John got a package, and I know you guys have heard this, but I'll go over it real quick. He got a package of from one of his viewers, and it had with a couple of kits from Aoshima, and it had the GT2000 in it. And John, the thing we kicked off with today was the initial, before this thing just took on a life of its own like it does, is we were talking about what I've learned from building models. And the example I used was, I was watching your video and you opened the box and you pulled out that Toyota GT2000. Hold on just a second. You know what? I'm just going to take this one. I know this is a Bondi kit. I just want to have an image to put up here with it. But you had mentioned that the car, there was one or two convertibles made for the James Bond movie. And all of a sudden, I'm burning out the typewriter, or the keyboard, going, I know this. That was two of them that were modified for, you only live twice, because Connery was too tall. And I know this because we went to Desertland and there's a model of it, and Steve told me about it. And I was like, I learned all of this information about the Toyota 2000 GT because of building models and being involved with people who build models. There's a picture of it now up late. And and that got me thinking about for the thing tonight is, okay, guys, what have we learned about things that we've learned throughout that we still carry with us today, that we've learned because we're model builders, and how things look, how they were colored, the color patterns, the palettes, what happened to the Star Trek models, why there are two, by the way, not convertible, but topless Toyota 2000 GTs, because Connery was too tall, and they just, Steve, you said it was a fake tonal they put on there just to make it look like a convertible, right?
Yeah, they needed the back open because they had the TV and they had some radio equipment and stuff in there to make it look like the Japanese girl who worked for Taiga Tanaka was like a spy car.
Yeah, okay. But it wasn't a real convertible, right? They just lopped the top off and put the ton out.
They just lopped the top off. There was no fold-up top in there.
Now, is the one you and I saw in Desertland, is that one of the actual cars, or is that a replica?
That's a copy.
That's a copy.
The two they made for the movie are in the Toyota Museum in Tokyo.
Oh, okay. So first off, the 2000 GT.
Jay Leno did a trip to Tokyo and he got to drive one of them.
Yeah. I'm surprised he could. Well, he's a pretty big guy. By the way, quick side note, I understand he's doing much better after he got burned. For those who don't know, Jay Leno was working on a steam car and got burned. And there were gasoline burns. There's no end of irony that you get a gasoline burn working on a steam car.
Well,
yeah, something's got to heat up the water. But I hear he's doing a lot better and has been released. But anyway, but there weren't that many 2000 GTs made, were there?
No, there weren't.
So chopping the top off of one's kind of a sacrilege. Well, now do you know if they ever made a model of the James Bond version? I'm sure they did.
Oh yeah, I have two of them here. Airfix made one, and who the heck else made the other one? Toyosha, I think, made the other one, but I have both of them.
You really want to be slick, you build one and then you make vacuum form or make the top for it, put it with the top up.
No, that's okay. They'll stay in the box.
So that's what we're going to do with them. Only get more valuable by the day. Well, I have a few kits like that I won't build.
The 2000 GT was part of the James Bond car kits that Airfix did.
Okay.
Airfix did the DB5 with two different boxes. Actually, three different boxes. And then they did the Toyota 2000 GT, and they did Little Nelly. And why they've never come back out with the DB5 is beyond me, because it was a great kit, and everything worked. And I was talking to the guy from Airfix, who was the brand manager at Toy Fair in 2000, and I asked him, I said, why have you never come back out with that kit? And he wouldn't even discuss it. So I don't even know if they still have the mold.
Oh my gosh. Well, Hollywood's made a lot of one-offs. I don't know if you ever guys saw Flight of the Phoenix, the original with Jimmy Stewart, but they actually made a couple airplanes, because when Frank Tolman was killed flying the first one, they got an old Sky Raider and mocked it up so they could do a few more flying scenes. And even as a kid, I looked and said, that's a different airplane. But no one ever made a kit of that, maybe because Tolman was killed, or maybe it's just too obscure. But I'm sure there's some kit bashers who have done it. But the GT, the thing about it is that they make the kit of both the real car and the one for the movie. But when somebody takes a real one, like they did at Desert, I'm not saying Desert did it, it's just at Desertland. But when they whack the top off of a real one, a part of me, is like, man, the 2000 GT is a pretty valuable car as it sits. You go chopping it up. That cannot enhance the value unless it's the screen car. If it's used on screen, it makes all the difference in the world. Hello?
We're still here.
Oh, okay. Yep, that's right. Paul Mantz was killed. They were doing insurance shots. They actually had already had all the flying that they needed done that day, but they wanted to do a couple of touch and goes for the takeoff scene, just to make, because in those days before they used digital stuff where they could see it immediately, there was always a chance it was out of focus or something was wrong, so they'd get insurance shots. And he was doing one, and the landing gear skid assembly caught the ground and set up a vibration that snapped the fuselage in half, actually into three pieces, broke in two spots, and it rolled over, and it killed Paul Mantz, and it badly maimed the guy that was in the seat behind him, the stuntman. Luckily, all the guys on the wings were just dummies, just mannequins. So, but it was, and you can see it on YouTube. It was all filmed at Hollywood quality. For a long time, no one would let them show it, but they do now. And Paul Mantz has done a lot of interesting, dangerous flying, and he's the one that taught Amelia Earhart how to fly. Different generation. But the fact, the movie at the end, they give him a dedication. That's nowadays, of course, it's all CGI. They remade that movie recently with what's his name? He's actually a pilot in real life. Oh God, I can see his face. I'm forgetting, not Jeff Bridges. Dennis Quaid, and unfortunately, they used a lot of CGI and everything, but and I watched it. I'm sorry, guys. There's no way an old C-119's doing that. But the C-119 is such a cool looking airplane. In fact, there's the Aurora box art right there behind me, and the flying boxcar is such a cool design that Hollywood loves to play with. It is an interesting airplane. It was a good airplane. And the French made their version of it, and before that they had the C-82, which was underpowered, which there aren't very many kits of either, which is kind of sad. But But then again, it wasn't a particularly great airplane, so I imagine. Let's see. Full kits. That's odd. Okay. Anagram, of course, makes one. Oh, come on. Somebody else has got to make the C-82. Anagram's like a resin cup. Really? Son of a gun. I would have thought, because everybody makes a C-118, I thought somebody would have... it's a Fairchild design.
They used an 047, not a Skyhawk.
What's that?
For the extra shots. Robin Reed just said that.
I'm looking for 047, not a Sky Raider. That's correct. Yeah. Yes. You are correct. Man, they're both slab-sided. I thought it was a Sky Raider when I first saw it. But, in fact, since we're on that subject.
What happened to the original one?
It was destroyed when they were killed, Ken.
No. The original subject.
What do you mean?
What we learned from building models.
Oh.
That one.
Well, one thing I learned from building models is you can't trust Hollywood. I felt so cheated when you guys
learn
remember
that from just watching the movies.
Well, okay, there it is. Yeah. Copy image. I'm going to show you guys a picture of the airplane, the 047 they made for Flight of the Phoenix. I was so disappointed when, I think it was it Ravel, put out when the TV show Baba Black Sheep came on, and they put out the Corsair, which I knew was just going to be a reboxed Corsair. Okay, with actually pretty mediocre decals, but the planes weren't overly marked in the Marine Corps back then. But then the Zero, they go, oh, we have the Japanese Zero model, and I expected it to be a model of one of the modified T6s that they used to stand in for the Zeros during the show, and it turned out it was just a real kit model Zero, and I was like, that's not what they use in the show. That's a real Zero, not a. Here's the 047 from Flight of the Phoenix. And, it just doesn't look and it does kind of resemble a Sky Raider. But it just doesn't, it didn't even fool me as a kid. But I mean, after what happened to Paul Mance, and they only use it for some distant shots where they fly over the Oasis with the oil crew on them. But the original airplane that he flew was something they had cobbled together. It says designed by Otto Tim, built by Tall Mance. And Tall Mance used to have a museum. That had a lot of this, and the displays rotated because it was whatever they had. Today, you look at these airplanes and go, my God, these are priceless artifacts. So back then, they were just old airplanes. And they didn't have much of an emotional attachment to them because they were just assets for a film company. And this is the original airplane. That
airplane's missing the rudder.
Yeah, the rudder's off of it in that picture. Oh, they sat out there they may have been building it at that point. Yeah, these things sat out there. So they robbed parts of them all the time. The one on top is the original machine that they cobbled together, and that's the one that crashed. And then the other one was just used for a couple of flyover shots. And
so they actually made a real airplane out of the parts from the C-47?
It was a C-82. I don't know if they actually used C-82 parts or if it was something they built from scratch or used other airplanes. These are the same guys, by the way, that cut up T-6s and BT-13s to make the the Kate torpedo planes for Tora Tora. And some of those things are still flying. They did good quality work. What happened to that thing that made Flight of Phoenix wasn't a result of its construction. It was an accident. I mean, they hit the ground too hard and the thing broke up. And I think the engine on it was a lot smaller than what was on the actual C-82. I think it was a T6 engine, but I'm not sure. It's been so long since I've read anything on it. But there's a kit basher's dream, you know. Make that. You'd have to chop up a few kits to do it, but I guarantee all the movie buffs, you take that to a model show, all the movie buffs are going to recognize it.
John brings up an interesting point. That's where he says, to Max's earlier point about creative type folks, in advertising, we would ask, how many creative directors does it take to screw in a light bulb? The answer is, why a light bulb?
God.
Yeah, when you could do a person.
Oh, Lord. Yeah. So.
All right.
Hollywood has betrayed me so many times in the kit model companies because, one of them the one that really torques me off was the two. They were both Aurora kits, the Rat Patrol and the Rat Patrol set, which if you find one today, people want about $300 for it, and the Anzio landing, which was Aurora. You know, it was a diorama thing, and of course, as a kid, I was exactly their target market. I was exactly who they were aiming for. But hold on, let me get this picture here real quick. Copy image. Now, for those who don't know, Anzio, I believe, is in Italy. And we did have a landing there that didn't go nearly as well as it should have. But according to Aurora, hold on, let me get it up here. Go back to this. Oh, so many button pushes. First world problems. Okay. See, normally this is the kind of stuff I set up ahead of time, but I just never know where this thing's going to go anymore. Well, according to Aurora, we had Patton tanks. We had Patton tanks at Anzio. I mean, we would have killed for Patton tanks at Anzio. And they're fighting, what is that? A Tiger II with the largest German Balkan cross on it I've ever seen. So basically, and all the guys landed with their bayonets fixed. And somehow they got all the ammo boxes and everything up ahead of the troops. These guys are laying in the prone position, hitting the beach, but somebody laid ammo out for them, or boxes of something. It comes complete with 7 vehicles, 4 tanks, an LCT, a raft, a jeep, bunkers, ridges, barricades, trees, rocks, and basically all this stuff is just stuff they had laying around. Let's just slap all this stuff into one kit.
It's just stuff they made too much of.
Yeah, I just keep thinking of Spaceballs. The Schwartz, the Schwartz, the flames. The kids love this one.
Look at the downward angle on that on the cannon on that Sherman in the background.
Yeah, it's got a heck of a depression on that gun. And but I'm like, you know, of course, when you're 6 years old, this is awesome, you know.
And the German tank's sitting right there, pointing the wrong way.
Yeah, how convenient. And
they did that all the time.
But
pointed the wrong way.
Okay, who brought the barrels of gasoline that are the drums that are down there at the bottom? I mean, they're being shot at. The Germans would not have left it behind.
Right next to the ammo boxes.
Yeah, I'm just like, and
that was like now in the upper right hand corner. Does that say John Steele? Look at it.
Hold on, let's see.
Look at the upper right hand corner of the shot.
Yeah, I don't think that it says like JJ. I don't think that's John. Well, it could be John Steele. You know, he is more of a Navy guy, so.
Well, there's a boat in the picture. Yeah, that could be John Steele. That looks, you know.
It has his look to it. Of course, don't forget that he had to make the model, the artwork that the art director at Aurora wanted. And there it is, Aurora. Oh well.
What kind of helmet is that guy in the tank wearing on the left?
Looks like he's wearing a regular combat helmet. Maybe he's just an infantry man going for the ride.
I don't know.
Kind of looks like a German helmet, doesn't
Oh my God.
That's what I was just thinking. Doesn't look like anybody else's helmet.
Read Trey's comment. It can't be accurate. The Sherman's not on fire. Hey, dude, too soon.
And why isn't he shooting the 50 cal that's right there in front of him?
Well, that was for anti-aircraft. He used a coaxial gun for all other stuff. But, of course, there is no there's no bow gun on a Patton. Now, this had been the Enchon landing. I mean, at least they had the Patton by then. No, I'm sorry. They had the T-26, M26. So I stand corrected. But, oh, well, creative license is one thing. And the Rat Patrol kit was just, I was like, oh, gosh, you guys, you're stealing my childhood. Although the Rat Patrol kit was making a model of a TV show. So you can forgive, and it's a 187 scale also. So you can forgive their whole Rat Patrol thing because that's just a TV show. It's not selling itself as history. But I gotta admit though, I really liked the Aurora Rat Patrol artwork. Let me just real quick, I'll throw that up here.
The guy's arms are too short to shoot the 50 cal. It was kind of sticking out there a ways, wasn't it?
Well, it's on an anti-aircraft mount, one of those. Here we go. I got to give the Rat Patrol credit. They really did come up with a cool box art. It's a lot like the TV show with the explosions and everything, because now you're making a model of a TV show. And I think it actually did come with a Panther, although the Rat Patrol was actually using American equipment. I think they shot the pilot episode in Spain.
It can't be accurate because the Sherman isn't on fire.
Yeah, I saw that. So I was saying too soon.
Yeah, there we go. Let's take 2 Jeeps of 50,000 go up against the Panzer tank.
Okay. Here's from John. Here's something I didn't know. The Rat Patrol kit was a repop of the Rat Patrol board game pieces. I didn't know that. Explains a lot. I didn't know there was a Rat Patrol board game, but I was probably 4 years old when this came out.
What could possibly go wrong with 2 guys in Jeeps chasing after tanks?
Well, just real quick, the Rat Patrol was inspired by the British Special Air Service, the SAS, who started off in trucks and then finally went to Willis Jeeps they cut down and highly modified. They wanted to make this an SAS group, but the problem was the SAS was British, not American. In the 60s, the American audience you had of Americans. So they put in the one British actor who played Sergeant Moffat, and that way they Britishize it. And he was actually I think they said he was supposed to be Army Long Range Reconnaissance or something, but it was clearly a ripoff of the SAS. And to help Britishize it a little bit and make Sam Troy, who was played by Christopher George, even cooler, they gave him the Australian hat. Which
never came off in battle. By the way.
Yeah. And George had been a Marine. He'd been in the Marines, so, he had no problem playing a military type. And then you've got the one guy, they want to make them all, they want to give them all a lot of character. So you got the one guy that wears the French Foreign Legion kepi, even though he's an American soldier. And I think Gage was a normal one who wore just a regular helmet. But you can mount a 50 caliber on a Jeep, but you really got to be careful about that. That's a big, heavy gun with a lot of recoil on a small vehicle. But it looked cool. It was good on camera. They were only shooting blanks. And, of course, the jump scenes and everything they did were done by stuntmen. But there was no CGI. They were really jumping those Jeeps, which is a really unsafe thing to do. But at least the Willis, and I had one, and Fran's got one also, Firko, Rhonda Firko here on the comment stream. I don't know if he's Fran. Are you out there? But he's got one that we took some pictures of me in, and God, I fill a Jeep up and leave room for little else. But at least they have a solid axle, so the wheels will stay in alignment. Had a lot of rollovers when they went to the M151 Mutts that replaced the Willis M36 series and WB series, or MB series, because they were independent. When the front would come up, the wheels would toe in, thing come down and roll over. And Willis were notorious for rolling over also. That was actually pointed out in Band of Brothers. But so you go banging around like Troy's doing here in a Jeep while it's turning with that 50 caliber, you're very likely just to rock the thing over on its back. By the way, Christopher George, the actor who played the lead character, he was in a Jeep rollover on set, and it crushed his chest, and they didn't know it at the time, but they're pretty sure it damaged his heart, which is why he died young at like 51 from a heart attack, or so I've read in several places. And there's Fran.
Rip the frost number out.
He says, "Yep, I would never jump my GPWA. Too many ways to die doing that." Yeah, it is. Of course, they were stuntmen and everything, but and I'm sure they planned it out. But you got to admit, it did make for some cool footage. I wonder how many idiots wrecked their Jeeps trying to repeat that. But
here, hold my beer.
Oh God. That's okay. The 50 caliber on top will keep us oriented correctly. That's what they missed when they made the jump. They should have been firing the guns. Oh boy. And Eric Braden, the actor that was playing the German, whose real name is Hans Gudegast. Hans Gudegast. And he's still doing soap operas, I think. Hey, give him credit. They used a real German to play the German. But the show was, for what it was, it actually wasn't a bad show. I mean, looking at the time period it was made, the quality of production, the writing, the fact that it was a half-hour show, they only had like 24 or 26 minutes of screen time, because back then they didn't have any commercials as they have now. And they, and it was popular for a while, so, kudos. I rather enjoy watching the old episodes of it. I mean, you can sit there and go, that's wrong. Well, come on, they're doing it on a TV budget. I mean, they shot the pilot in Spain to save money. It's like Black Sheep Squadron or Baba Black Sheep. The first season, at least they were trying, but you can't make a repeating show about something that took place over an 8-month period. Like the MASH. Was MASH on for 9 seasons? The Korean War only lasted 3. And, well, anyway, that's one of the problems of doing history. My wife and I have been watching The Crown, and which I don't know how accurate it is, but we find it extremely entertaining. We really love it. And but there are some things that are just, you have a little trouble getting past, like the actress they got playing Diana is taller than the guy playing Charles. I don't recall Diana being that tall, especially not taller than Charles. Maybe I'm wrong. I can't say I really paid that much attention to him, but somehow it just sort of takes you out of it. But other than that, the production quality is insane. It's really incredible.
That movie that Daniel Britton's talking about, he says, State of Division or Death Race with Doug McClure was a good movie about a damaged P-40 being chased by a German tank. I thought that was a P-51.
No, it was a P-40. No, that was Roy Thinnis from, what was that, The Invaders?
Invaders.
And he gave him the hard time. He lands at a British airfield to get fuel. And he's got a later model P-40 that has a bomb rack. And he says, and he realizes he's talking to another American. And they sort of pick at each other because McClure is kind of your... I'm just here because I got to be here. And whereas Thinnis is the kind of guy that was in the war fighting for the British before the Americans were even in it. So he's more gung-ho. And he's like, so what happens if I just turn around and fly home? He goes, I'd have to shoot you down. He sees him crawl in the cockpit. He's got like 9 swastikas down the side of the cockpit. Yeah, I'm not going to trifle with this guy. They're looking to blow up an Italian minefield to use the bomb to detonate it. Well, the bomb winds up. He spots the wrong field, drops the bomb. It doesn't do anything. Well, then they see this shot-up convoy on the way back. Hans Gudegast is commanding a Sherman in the Africa Corps. Okay, I get it. Television, TV budget. Lloyd Bridges is playing a sort of a Rommel type who's about half crazy. And they attack the tank, but Roy Thinnis P-40 gets hit. He's got a crash land or bail out. So McClure lands to pick him up, and they catch a cannon round that blows a hole in the wing and sticks the aileron. So all they can do is taxi real fast. They can't actually fly. So yeah, they're chasing each other across the desert. And then they realize that they're being chased into the minefield they were looking for. So I won't spoil the ending for you.
Okay, I thought they got a hit in the radiator and they
no, the engine wouldn't work if that was the case. Nah, I blew a hole in the wing, and I remember Doug McClure was doing a walk around, grabbing it and tugging, and going, "It's stuck." I could have figured that out by the big piece of peeled back aluminum in a circular shape in the middle of the wing. But he does make some hops when they start strafing the air, when they start strafing the tank. But and they've got the wounded German, all out of morphine. And anyway, the ending of it was pretty hokey, but.
Fred Kerr says the show's tonight on the Heroes channel.
Oh, really?
Rat Patrol, yeah, it's on tonight on the Heroes channel.
So,
okay.
Oh, geez. A whole bunch of us just populated.
Old black and white movie, The Iron Maiden.
Combat, 12 o'clock high, the Gallon Hour. I love the Gallon Hours. My wife and I just watched it recently. That's with Cagney playing Bull Halsey. She found it, a boring movie because there was no action, because it's all about from the Admiral's point of view. Very sullen film. Cagney made that movie himself, but I always rather liked it. And it just tells the story of the Pacific War seen from Halsey's perspective, including the Battle of Iron Bottom Sound and all that other stuff. And we lost 2 admirals in that battle. But man, so many mistakes were made, wound up shelling our own ships. Ah, Jesus. But that was just utter confusion. The Japanese really owned the night in the early war. They were excellent. The optics were excellent at night to surface engagements. But once we perfected radar and matching the radar to the guns, which changed naval warfare forever. I mean, it had about almost as big of an impact on naval warfare as aircraft carriers did. But I think, was it Haruna? Which battleship it was? It was the only battleship-to-battleship battle in the Pacific. But the Americans were using radar, so they could just plaster the Japanese with considerable accuracy, in the murky dark. And the submarines, late in the war, once they got the torpedoes working and got the radar working, sub-skippers learned to use the radar. They could just slightly surface the boat enough the radar could get a read, so they were still mostly submerged. And they made a lot of devastating attacks using radar and torpedoes. So, war was shifting. Bogart and tank, the Sahara Bogart. In fact, if you guys have ever seen Sahara, if you ever build an M3 Lee, there's your diorama, Humphrey Bogart character, and that was a good movie. And it was actually Broderick Crawford was in a Western cavalry film that was a complete ripoff of Sahara, just put in the Old West. Instead of the Germans dying of thirst, and pulling the bluff with the water, it was the Indians that were dying of thirst, and they're pulling the bluff with the water. But the thing about that movie that makes it so great is everything was about, because they're in Sahara, everything was about who controls the water. So what?
Jim Rockford driving a Sherman?
Tank, the movie Tank. He plays an Army sergeant major who has his own tank that he and his son built, an old Sherman. He's an armor divisional sergeant major. And some crooked sheriff arrests his son on trumped-up charges and threatens to kill him and basically extorts him. So once he realizes he's not going to get any relief through a crooked court, he shows up in his Sherman.
Oh, yes, I do remember that movie. Okay, yeah.
Hey, he goes to jail, the deputy comes out, I do believe I got you outgunned. Yeah, that was a fun little movie. One thing I will tell you, one of the things about that movie that was surprisingly spot on is when the people help him, and that night a bunch of the sheriff's cronies go out to get them for helping him. And he shows up at night in the tank, and they all leave screaming in terror. Having been through a night tank assault in the infantry, I can tell you that it's like a Godzilla movie. When you hear those things clank along in the dark and you can't see them, the trees are shaking and the earth is shaking, you will get religion in a hurry. That is a bowel loosening experience. You realize they don't need guns. They're knocking trees down, man.
Yeah, here's something I never ever heard of. Remember the Twilight Zone episode of a tank crew that time traveled to Custer's Last Stand? I have never seen that episode.
Yes.
What I want to know is why didn't they tank the tank? I mean, they took their carbines. Why don't, hey, guys, let's take the tank.
I think they ran out of gas or something.
Okay, well, they found their names added to the list. Yeah. Yeah, it was just a little Stuart Light tank.
Been to Custer's Last Stand.
Hey, one Stuart Light tank would have made all the difference at the Battle of Little Bighorn, or one minigun.
There weren't any tanks laying around, were there?
Well, the problem was the Indians had automatic weapons. Custer didn't.
Yeah.
Oh. More than one time traveler, huh?
Well,
when you go there and you go to the little museum they have there, and they have a chronological section in there that tells what happened like every day. Custer was a frigging idiot.
Oh, he was no.
Yeah.
He graduated at the bottom of his class in West Point, and he was supposed to get court-martialed when, due to a paperwork screw-up, he actually got command of a unit, did well in battle, and the North was having so much trouble at the time, they said, screw the court-martial, this guy wins. Because he was basically reckless.
I mean, he didn't wait for reinforcements, which were on the way. He was almost out of ammo, and the Indians had the high ground, and they had automatic weapons, and his guys...
Well, they had repeaters. They had repeaters, yeah.
Yeah, so they were outgunned, outmanned. And when you go there, there's a monument, and the entire group of his soldiers are buried there. Because the Indians hacked them to pieces.
Yep.
After they shot them.
Oh.
Well, they also learned later on that a lot of Custer's men died of self-inflicted wounds. You know, save the last round for yourself, because they knew exactly what the they knew exactly had in mind for them. And looking at it from the Native American standpoint, I can't say as I blame them, because the cavalry had done plenty of nasty stuff to the Indians, and they were looking for some payback. Yeah, he should. The thing is Reno and Benteen got to cover, and they were able to survive, and with a lot of their men, because they were, they got to the wooded area where they could mount a defense. Custer was out in the open, and he lost sight of them, and the whole thing. Well,
they were a day and a half behind him, and he didn't want to wait for them, and he went ahead without them.
Yeah, not so very smart.
Nope.
No.
And
as my friend who was a colonel in the 101st Airborne said, when you go to military college, it's the example of what not to do on every level.
That's what he did right. Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that.
I don't know if it's true, but there's an urban legend that he actually had access to some Gatling guns, but he wouldn't wait on them either, or didn't take them because he thought they'd slow him down, which they probably would have. And I also understand he rode his men really hard. I mean, they were in bad physical condition. They were underfed. Their saddles were worn out.
The distance that he traveled from the fort in the south of the state to where the Little Bighorn was really far, and they made it in a really short period of time. So that would definitely be true.
Also,
because the Little Bighorn's on the border with Montana.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things
with Wyoming.
One of the things that turned out to be a bit of a thing was that the back then, you got to remember that metallic cartridges were a new thing, and a lot of them weren't made of brass like we do today. They were made of copper, which turned out not to be so good. And apparently, one of the things that was happening was the guys were shooting the rifles till they got hot, and they would, because they were trapdoors, they would, flip it up and put one round in, close fire, cock fire, and repeat. Like you said, the Indians had repeaters like Henrys or Winchesters. Well, what was happening was the guns were getting hot, the cases were overexpanding, and when they went to pull up the breech, it would strip the rear of the case off the casing. So now you couldn't use the gun. You couldn't use your rifle. They didn't have the armorer's tools to get in there and pull out the remaining case. Not to mention, by the way, they're being shot at, and they're using black powder, which is very grungy. I don't think so much the guns are getting hot, probably as they were getting dirty. So then you're down to your pistol. And a lot of these guys, when they got down to their last round, like, nah, yeah, you're not doing this to me. And so...
Well, the Indians surrounded them.
Well, oh, by the way, John, we're going to sign off here in just a minute. This is for John Kitt. I was talking earlier, you probably heard. I want to say I really appreciate watching your videos when I'm stressed out, because you have a very relaxing manner. I hope you appreciate this, but I consider you the Mr. Rogers of model building. It's very soothing and relaxing to watch your show, and so keep up the good work, guys. If you haven't checked out Scale Car Garage, it's especially like slot cars. But and John also casts a lot of his own resin stuff, and so does his, your daughter makes stuff too. A lot model building family, And Trey, shout out to Trey. He's got his kid and grandkid into model building, doing nice work. We got to keep the young generation interested in models. The only thing I got Eduardo interested in so far is Gundam, and somehow I ended up building them. So
since John was late we got a few minutes left. So since John was late to the live stream, let's ask him a question. What did he learn from model building?
John, you care to field that? What did you learn from your many years and experience building models?
That buying them built was cheaper.
But well, I've had a few.
Maybe how to drive a car.
I've had a few glue troopers send me pictures of their kids or grandkids building models, and it always warms my heart. The main thing that's important to me, though, is that folks are enjoying it. The whole idea of a hobby is to relax. The world throws enough curveballs at us as it is. It's nice to have a hobby that just you can relax. That's one of the reasons. Like this redstone behind me, that cheap plastic in the tower was so hard to work with. I don't want to think about how much CA glue is holding that thing on right now. And at one point, I'm like, I was like, dude, it's a hobby. Just relax and enjoy what you're doing. Once I can get my fingers apart again, because it was CA glue. Anyway.
There's a little trick to that, right?
What's that?
Besides not getting the glue on your fingers?
Don't tell me to wear gloves. I lose my dexterity.
No. You get some Vaseline and put a very, very thin coat on your fingers. Glue peels right off.
I am not touching that.
Except when you go to pick up the model, you can.
Yeah, whee!
Well, I didn't say it was perfect.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm launching another one and launching another one earthward.
Yeah, and then it would go flying across the room when you tried to pick it up.
One nice thing about this floor, you guys can see this is a hardwood floor. The nice thing about that is that it's easy to find parts when I drop them.
Yeah, because when it hits that hardwood floor, there'll be a lot of them.
Well, that's if you drop the whole model, yes. But so let's see. Did John ever answer your question? Let's see. Oh, here we go.
I haven't seen anything. Is it?
I learned that all human endeavor is derived from modeling. I love it.
Oh, there. Oh, okay, there it is.
Well, guys, I have to go to work tomorrow, unfortunately, the W word. So,
how'd you do that?
Stay out of the skies, guys.
So, I'm going to wrap things up now, but I'll loop the outro and let you guys chat amongst yourselves for a little while. And want to thank everybody for joining us. Ken?
Yes?
Steve?
What?
Still sending pictures behind my back? That's not going away anytime soon.
He's gonna be so surprised.
I'm gonna feel silly if I open up my.
It just goes on, Ken.
I'm gonna
Probably.
I'm gonna feel silly if I open up my voice, my text, and there's a whole bunch of pictures there. Oh, Barry sent. Guys, Barry sent us a picture. We were talking about the Volkswagen thing. He used to have one. The thing.
Yeah, that's where the live stream went from you only live twice to you don't have a chance.
The camera can't pick up the. Oh, well.
Yeah, I saw that before, John, but I didn't have a chance to slide it in.
Well, guys, I am going.
Jet Pilot used the T-33A as a MiG stand-in? Really?
Yep. They did when she comes across and they intercept her. And
They don't look anything alike.
Ken, again, it's what they had. Since they were using F-86s for the intercept, it would have been nice if they used an F-84 like they did the McConnell story. It actually looks like a MiG-15. Well, guys, I want to thank everyone for coming in, or coming and joining us this evening. Hope you had a good time. I'll turn off the camera. I'll run the video. And, guys, take care of yourselves. And, as always, model on.
Night, everybody.
Night, guys.